And welcome back. We are going to continue working with our pixel art. If you remember last time, we explored how we took an 8x8 image and scaled it up to 16x16. So just as a recap, this was our 8x8 pineapple, and this was our 16x16 pineapple. And as you can see from the thumbnails, the quality of the image has vastly improved. But now let's take a step up further. Just to kind of really illustrate the point home of how important pixels are, let's go ahead and do the same thing we've done before, and let's take this up to 32x32. This way we will have even more pixels to work with than we did before. So if we go ahead and say, hey, here's our pineapple, let's go ahead and look at that here. Now notice we still have 1 pixel, and you can see that the square that I've been using is now even smaller. So I'm going to first go ahead and let's use our picker tool here. We're going to go ahead and assume, let's use this blue here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, if I use the rectangle tool to try and cheat this a little bit, you'll notice that it fills it in, but it creates a fill. So we want to stick with our pencil tool, but we can, of course, if we want to make this go just a little bit faster, let's increase this up to size 2, just to start. And then we can notice that now I can fill this in a little bit faster, and I can this way I can kind of replicate the gradient that I was using before. And as I do that, you will see if I hold down the shift key to keep that line straight, let's go ahead and again color picker, we can fill this in really quickly so that when we start working on this pineapple, we will already have the background done. And the nice thing is we are adding in a gradient really easily here. Now, of course, I can come in here and make this gradient much more pronounced. I have the ability, of course, to pick different colors if I so choose. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave this like this. Now, of course, like I said, it does make it a little more obvious when we start using these same colors here. But it's all right for the purpose of this demonstration. All right, so I went ahead and jumped ahead a little bit and just finished that gradient in here. So let's go ahead now and skip to working on our pineapple. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and start with first some of the darker colors here. And let's go ahead, switch back to our pencil tool. And I'm going to leave it on 2 pixels just for now, just to kind of make things a little simpler. But let's go ahead, and we want this to kind of correlate to the same spot, so that's going to be about right here. And that was before 2 wide, so let's go ahead and just make that 2. We're just going to go ahead and make this roughly the size of a pineapple that we want to have. Now, one of the advantages is again, because we have more pixels, we can add much more dimension than what we had here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and decrease my brush size now, so I can get a much more fine-tuned control over the size of this pineapple. And that looks pretty good. So I might need to brush this corner in a little bit, or I can just go ahead and do that. All right, so we have our pineapple taking shape here. And so let's go ahead and go back to here, use our color picker tool so we can get those exact same patterns. And let's go ahead and paint our cross pattern that we had done before. And of course, we'll be able to go through and change these as we move into the darker shades. That seems pretty good for that one. Let's go ahead and move down. And I don't know if you can notice, but as I'm doing this, one of the things I'm noticing with my pineapple here is that it is becoming much more detailed in this image here than anything we previously had. And the different colors are really starting to make a difference. Now, of course, I can add additional colors in here. There's nothing preventing me from saying I'm restricted to the same color palette that I was using previously. So, for example, like if I go ahead and start painting these colors in here just to give some contrast, I might say, you know, I only want this color palette for this yellow here to exist here, and then I'm going to change it up. I have the ability to do so because, again, I have more pixels to work with, so I can change those values accordingly to whatever I need them to be. And back to our brush tool, let's go ahead and just transition these in here real quick. I'll pause the video real quick, and when we come back, I'll have this base done. And there we go. We have completed the base, and you can see I've added a little bit of color variation in here, so it's not all just uniform within these different gradients. And if you look at our base of our pineapple here in this image, before I even have added the leaves, compare that to our 16 by 16, and you can see the detail that has emerged just because I have more pixels to work with. Now, of course, let's go ahead and do the same things we did before. Let's go ahead and grab our green, and we're going to go ahead and go back to our brush size, and let's just increase that by 1 just so we can get some quick strokes in here. So there's the start of our better pineapple. And again, use the eyedropper tool just to capture some of these colors real quick. Go ahead and start brushing some of this in. It's okay if we have a little bit of pixel overlay or anything like this, because again, we are going to be trying to make this into a new higher definition pineapple. So we may have a little gaps here and there, but again, it's all subject to change. This is the beautiful thing about having more pixels to work with, is that we can add more definition. All right, and I think that should be good. Let's go ahead and decrease this brush size here a little bit. And now we're going to go ahead and start filling some of this in. All right, now notice I've only used just the colors I had before, which doesn't make this look that much better than what we had previously. So let's go ahead and now start with our eyedropper tool. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to go back to this darker green here. And you know, maybe I want to add a shade that's a little darker just for the outside. So I can start adding some definition here. Maybe we just want to do it around these corners here, just to kind of add a little pop to this. And I can do things like that because, again, more pixels you have, the more colors you can use, the more data that you have to really kind of drive home a point with your colors to add a lot more dynamic ability within what you are painting here. So you can see how there's some small color differential in here now. Everything is not so uniform. I'm going to go this bright one this time. And let's go ahead and make that just a little more dull. And that should allow us to add a bit more contrast here. And let's go ahead and maybe pick one that's a little brighter, just for a few pixels. Again, it doesn't have to look exactly as the pineapple we had before, but the advantage of us doing this is it gives us a lot more power because, again, the power of pixels. This darker one here. And pick a new shade of green just to kind of break this up a little bit. So it's not so uniform looking. And now when we look at our pineapple, there's our pineapple. Let's compare that to our previous pineapple and compare that to the previous pineapple. And in our thumbnail here, you can see how that has changed. So this is our 8x8, 16 by 16, and now 32 by 32, because now we have a lot more control. We can really add some definition. And if we were to scale this up to 64 by 64, we really could make this into a pineapple. And just as a reference, here is an actual picture of a pineapple. Let's compare that, of course, to our drawn pineapple here. And you can see that they are not quite the same thing. However, this pineapple still has a lot of resemblance to what we drew here. And again, this is pixel art, so it doesn't have to look exactly like what we did. However, we could, of course, hone this in, say, hey, you know, we want this to look much more like a pineapple. Maybe I want to start getting into some of these regions here that I had. So, for example, you'll notice with the pineapple here, we don't have just like little rectangular regions. We actually have these much more circular regions that are the center of the pineapple. We also have these little details here. You know, the leaves are independent here. So this is something we could start getting into as we start getting into larger images. We can start adding some of those details. And that's something we can start doing at 32 by 32. Or if we would go to 64 by 64, we definitely could start honing in on some of this finer detail. But that should wrap up everything we're talking about today, folks. So we will see you in the next lesson.